demanding new contract from Ineos. Deal for Adrian Rabiot as a free agent reportedly close. And Mason Greenwood attracting interest from Napoli. These are some of the stories we will be discussing on this morning's show. But before we get into that, please smash a like on today's video. Let's try and see 200 likes on this morning's show. And also, please subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you any money. It's completely free. We will be live throughout the transfer window at 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. UK time. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you get involved in the channel for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. Right, let's start off the show with Adrian Rabiot, shall we? Because I think, you know, with it being the last Premier League game yesterday, we will now start to see transfer stories coming out a little bit more, because obviously players are going to be deciding what they want to do now. Most players are going to want to move before the Euro starts. I believe the Euro starts on the 14th of June, I think it is, which coincidentally is actually the same day that the transfer window opens. So I think what's going to happen is a lot of teams are going to be negotiating between now and the 14th of June. And then as soon as the transfer window opens on the 14th of June, they can make those deals official. Obviously, a player can't sign before the transfer window is open, but they can effectively do all of the behind the scenes stuff. They can, you know, agree the contracts, agree the transfer fee. So I think there's going to be a really, really big flurry of activity in the next kind of 3 or 4 weeks. Obviously, players will go off on holiday for a little bit, but I think most players, from what I'm hearing, especially those that are involved in the Euros, will want their future decided before the Euros happens, because it's just an unnecessary distraction otherwise, like to have people constantly asking you about, whether you're going to move, what are you going to stay at this club, etc., when you're in the middle of an international tournament. So Adrian Rabiot to Manchester United, what do I think about this? It doesn't massively excite me, if I'm being completely honest, but as a free transfer, I think it's not terrible. He is 1 year older than Amrabat. If I said to you this, right, let's look at this slightly different. Adrian Rabiot is probably like a £30 million player, I would say. 25 to £30 million. That's what I would say his value is. Now, obviously, his contract's expired. So Manchester United will be able to sign him for nothing. Is he better than Amrabat? I think he is better than Amrabat personally, from what I've seen of him anyway. I think Rabiot is a better midfielder than Sofian Amrabat. I think he's more experienced. I think he's been playing at a higher level for a longer time. Obviously, you know, PSG, Juventus, like in my opinion, he's a better player. Now, if I said to you, we could pay £20 million to keep Amrabat, that's how much it will cost, or we can go and sign Rabiot for free, I would probably rather take Rabiot over Amrabat. Now, there is always the argument of, well, if you don't think either of them are good enough, then why are you getting any of them? But I think with him being a free agent and with me wanting Eriksen to go, Donny van der Beek to go, Amrabat to go, who else have we got in that midfield? Casemiro to go. I mean, that's 4 players already, right? That should be leaving the club this summer. If Manchester United are going to be competent under Ineos, Donny, Van der Beek, Casemiro, Scott McTominay and Eriksen, all 5 of those midfielders should be leaving the club this summer, realistically, shouldn't they? And if that happens, we're going to need to sign at least 2 or 3 midfielders. Now, I'm not by any means sat here this morning saying that Rabiot is my dream signing. He's going to come in and play every single game for Man United. I just think that he would be a good squad option. And I think that, you know, if Ineos are going to do what we're expecting them to do, which is, you know, remove the likes of Casemiro, Eriksen, Donny van der Beek, Scott McTominay, then you're going to have to sign 2 or 3 midfielders. Now, whether that's one older midfielder like Rabiot, maybe then you go and get somebody like Amadou Onana from Everton as an example for 50 million. Like, those are the kind of things we have to do. And then maybe we promote a player from the youth as well. So maybe somebody like Dan Gore, maybe he could come into the first team set up next season. So already you can kind of piece together what our summer will have to look like. It could maybe be one more expensive player like a Amadou Onana, one free agent like a Rabiot, and then bringing through one player from the youth. That would be 3 new midfielders in the first team, and then you could easily get rid of Casemiro, Eriksen. Donny's obviously doesn't even play for Man United at all, so he's not really a loss, is he? You know, you could easily get rid of Eriksen, Casemiro, Donny van der Beek, and Amrabat obviously goes back on loan. So that's 4 players leaving, and 3 players come into the first team setup, and I would be happy with that. I think Scott McTominay is going to be the difficult one. I think For some reason, he's valued at Man United. I don't know why. I get as an impact sub, he does get the odd goal here and there, but he offers nothing in my opinion. And I would definitely cash in on Scott McTominay 100%. I know we need to have squad players, but I've just explained to you how we can improve our squad. You know, just because we need a squad doesn't mean that we keep players who aren't good enough. If we can get 25 million for Scott McTominay, I would much rather sell him for 25 million, bring in a Rabiot, promote someone like Dangor, and then maybe someone like Amadou Onana. That's 3 better players than Scott McTominay, realistically. And that's what I would like to see happen anyway. And I think this age-old excuse that we need to keep players just because we need a squad, I think it's a little bit lazy. And I think there are other options out there. And I think that, you know, Scott McTominay for 25, 30 million is an absolute no-brainer for me. That goes straight into the financial fair play, profit and sustainability pot because he's a youth player. So yeah, I'm quite positive about all of this. And I think this transfer window, my expectation is this is going to be the biggest transfer window in the last 10 years. And if it isn't, as soon as that transfer window closes, I'm going to be judging Ineos. I am, because I've given them the benefit of the doubt. I've backed them. I've said I'm excited. I said I'm hopeful with what they're doing. I think there's a bright future ahead and all the rest of it. But that can quickly change. If this transfer window, we're sat here and, I don't know, I don't want to single players out because it's a bit unfair, but Eriksen, Casemiro, Lindelof, who else have we got? Wan-Bissaka. Like, some of these players are clearly not good enough. That's just a few people. I'm sure there's a whole array of more players. Hannibal, Mejbri, Pellistri. Some would say Rashford. There's so many players that need to leave the club this summer. So many. And I think Ineos are going to do what we're all hoping. I think they're going to have a massive clear out. That's my expectation. I'm expecting them to actually deliver on what the promises they've made. And I feel like they will. I feel like from what I've seen of Ineos so far, they've been ruthless. They've been brutal. And I think that they will just say, you're not good enough, go. You're not good enough, go. Because in the past, when we've been in these kind of crossroad moments, the Glazers would say, oh, let's give him a new contract. Let's give him a new contract. Let's give him a new contract. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that is a typical Glazer kind of structure. And we've already seen that with Rafael Varane, arguably one of the best defenders in the world when he's fit and available. They've let him go for nothing. The same with, who else have we got? I mean, even like people like Anthony, the stories that Anthony's going to leave. Anthony Martial's leaving. Christian Eriksen's probably leaving. Johnny Evans isn't getting a new contract. Victor Lindelof's probably going to go. Aaron Wan-Bissaka's probably going to go back to Crystal Palace. Sofian Amrabat's not being kept on. Like, do you see where I'm going with this? That's already like 8 or 9 players. Tom Heaton's obviously going. I mean, that doesn't really make any difference, but he is going. And off the back of that, we will then have to sign more and more players. I'll move on to the manager story in a minute. Everyone who's just joined the video, please give the video a like. We've got over 200 people watching the show live this morning, which is incredible. So please smash a like if you haven't already. Let's try and hit 200 likes and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We'll be live throughout the whole transfer window in the morning and in the evening. And if anything breaks during the day, I will be live. So, if you do like all of the transfer talk, make sure you subscribe. Let's move over to this story about the manager then, because I can see quite a lot of people in the comment section of the live chat talking about this. So let's move over to the manager story. And before I do that, get involved in the poll if you're watching the video live. If you're not watching the video live, you can let me know in the comment section. And the question is this: should Ineos give Erik ten Hag a new contract? Now, let me give you a bit of context, but before you kind of jump down my throat on this. So, Erik ten Hag has 1 year left of his contract. A year from now, he will be leaving Manchester United. Okay? And apparently, Erik ten Hag has gone to Ineos and said, am I going to be part of your project? I.e., a project isn't 1 year. A project's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, look at Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. How long's Jurgen Klopp been at Liverpool? Is it 9 years? How long has Pep Guardiola been at Man City? 8 years? How long was Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United? Decades. Like, football these days is so reactionary and so short term and so I want success immediately, otherwise they're not good enough. Liverpool were terrible for years, and he's been the manager there since 2015. 9 years. So what I'm kind of getting at here is Erik ten Hag, and I think this is fair, has gone to Ineos reportedly. This is the story. It says Erik ten Hag is looking for Jim Ratcliffe to show him commitment by offering him a new contract, but so far there have been no signs of extending it from Jim Ratcliffe. It says United would have to pay Erik ten Hag around £10 million if they were to sack him this summer. He says, the story goes on to say there is a possibility that Erik ten Hag will walk away from Manchester United and take up a new challenge if Jim Ratcliffe fails to give him the reassurance he wants. And you know what? I said this about 6 months ago. I said, if we don't give Erik ten Hag a new contract, he's going to go. Because there are so many clubs out there at the moment who need a new manager. Juventus, Bayern Munich, Barcelona potentially. Who else have we got? There's more. Chelsea even. Chelsea, it looks like Poch is going to leave Chelsea. Like, that's 4 clubs off the top of my head who are looking for a new manager at the moment, right? Erik ten Hag has got 1 year left of his deal. And whether you think he's a good manager or not is, I don't want to say it's irrelevant, but you have to understand his position. If you were in a job, right, and you just take, let's make this more normal for an average person, okay? Say you were just about to, me or you work a normal job for a company that you've worked at for 2 years. And you know that after 2 years, your contract is going to end at that club, right? At that business that you work for. And you've just taken out a new mortgage. You plan to get married next year. You have, I don't know, another child on the way. Whatever it is, right? Just normal things that happen to normal people. And you know that your contract with your current employer says that you only have 1 year left. And then they're not giving you any reassurances on it. And then you see there are better companies out there, i.e. Bayern Munich, Juventus, at the moment. I'm not saying overall, we're obviously bigger clubs than them, but there are better projects out there who are trying to recruit you to go and work for that new company. And you're sat there thinking, like, just think about it on a more human level. And I actually respect Erik ten Hag for this, because it's a horrible position to be in. When you're unsure about your future, you're unsure about whether you're still going to have a job. You're unsure about whether the owners of the company are happy with what you're doing. And this is just, I know people are like, oh, sack him, he's crap, he's a bold fraud. Like, people just love to be reactionary about it. And I think that for me personally, you give him a new contract, but it's just a 1 year extra on his deal. So he has 2 years then. So he has next year and the year after, 2 years. If it doesn't work, you can still sack him. Like, that's fine. It's no issue whatsoever. But I do think he needs some level of reassurance that he is at least the manager they want to continue with. And if he isn't, that's fine. If he isn't the manager they want to continue with, get rid of him and bring someone else in. That's not what I would do personally, but I would much rather us know as fans what Ineos think, because waiting for this magical FA Cup final, it's like trying to find a unicorn. Do we really think going into the FA Cup final we're going to beat Man City? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be negative. I'm always very positive on this channel, but Man City are an unbelievable football side. They've got the best manager in the world. They've got the best squad in the world. They've got the best mentality in the world. They've just won 4 Premier League trophies in a row. Are we genuine? Are Ineos that stupid that they're sat there thinking, let's wait until the FA Cup final. Let's see how he does in that. If he loses that game, we'll sack him. I mean, they may as well just sack him now, because we're not going to win that game. I said this the other day as a bit of a joke, but I'm being serious. If Erik ten Hag wins the FA Cup final on Saturday, he will be the greatest manager of Manchester United since Sir Alex Ferguson, without a shadow of a doubt. To have won back-to-back trophies, our first trophy in 6 years, finishing 3rd last season after our worst ever points total the year before, 58 points, our worst points total in Premier League history. If he was to then go and beat Man City on Saturday, after the season we've had with injuries and all the rest of it, he would be, in my opinion, better than any other manager after Sir Alex Ferguson, without a shadow of a doubt. And I just think that we desperately need to be planning for the future. Okay, we need to be bringing in players. We need to be working out who's going to leave. And how do we do that when we don't know who the new manager is going to be? We don't know if there is going to be a new manager. We don't know whether Ineos even like Erik ten Hag. Like, they need to come out and publicly back him or sack him. And if they sack him, I'll be a bit disappointed, but I would honestly rather they sack him than us just be waiting around like idiots for this FA Cup final, which they're hoping we're going to win. And then they'll come out and say, oh, we back Erik ten Hag, he's done amazing. It's like, well, why did you not say that 2 weeks ago? I know people will say, oh, well, he hadn't achieved anything 2 weeks ago and all the rest of it. I get that, but I just find it a little bit frustrating. But yeah, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. And I think the biggest thing for me is that there isn't any obvious replacements out there at the moment. Yeah, there isn't any obvious replacements out there. Like, this story goes on to say that Thomas Tuchel, Graham Potter, Like, these are the kind of names we're being linked to. Is that really what you want? Really? It's a no from me. The story also goes on to say that both Bayern Munich and Ajax believe that Erik ten Hag will be sacked by Manchester United at the end of the season, even if they win the FA Cup. So clubs are already circling for his signature. You know, you've got these people who are saying he's a fraud, get him out of my club, all the rest of it. This fraud this human being that you're describing as a fraud, who won Ajax 3 back-to-back trophies, got us our first trophy last season in 6 years and finished 3rd place, with, let's be honest, an average squad. If he leaves Man United, he will go to Bayern Munich, he will go to Ajax, and he will achieve great things. I'm sure of it. And we'll all be sat here with Graham Potter or Gareth Southgate, and the same people who said Erik ten Hag will be all quiet. And I know some people will say, oh, you can't live your life like that, but that's just my opinion. And I do just wonder as well, like, I don't know, I had this weird kind of thought earlier on today where I do get the other side of the argument. Life is short. How long are we going to wait for trophies again? How long are we going to wait for success? And if Ineos don't think that he's the right man to take them forward in the long term, I don't mean one more season. I mean 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons, right? If they don't think he is, I would sack him. I would sack him today if I was Ineos. I don't care whether it's the FA Cup final on Saturday. My personal preference is that they keep him. I think he is someone who can take us forward. I think he could be our Jurgen Klopp. I'm not going to say he could be our Pep because he's not going to win 4 Premier League trophies in a row. That's just deluded. But I think Erik ten Hag could be our Jurgen Klopp. I mean, Jurgen Klopp in 10 years won 1 Premier League and 1 Champions League. I'm pretty sure Erik ten Hag could do that in 10 years if he was given the time. I genuinely think that. But if Ineos don't think that, if they, in their hearts, they don't think that Erik ten Hag is that man to take us forward for the next 10 years, then I would just sack him immediately. Because if they don't have that trust in him, they don't have that faith in him, then it's completely pointless keeping him for 1 more season, to be honest with you. They need to bring in somebody who they actually respect, somebody who they think is that person for the future. But what I'm saying to you, Ten Hag outers, that's going to be Graham Potter. That's going to be Gareth Southgate. That's going to be Thomas Tuchel. And do you see any of those people as someone who could be here for 10 years? Do you see any of those people who could be our next Jurgen Klopp or our next Pep Guardiola or even our next Sir Alex Ferguson? Because I do not. Ashley says, do you want me to list all of the things that Erik ten Hag has done wrong this season? Why don't you tell me how many injuries Erik ten Hag's had this season? Why don't you tell me how many different centre-back partnerships he's had this season? Why don't you tell me what happened to Arsenal last season when they were top of the league and they had 1 player injured in Saliba and they bottled the league? Why don't you tell me what happened to Liverpool last season where they lost Van Dijk and they finished 5th and had their worst season in God knows how long? Why don't you tell me all of those things? Because I would like to know them. I mean, I know the answers, but it would be good if you understand how it works in football. You understand how how a squad ridden with injuries, 10 plus first team injured players throughout the whole season, a 36-year-old in Johnny Evans playing at centre-back, a midfielder in Casemiro whose legs are gone playing at centre-back, not having a left-back all season, having Jadon Sancho call out the manager and refuse to play, having Ronaldo do a statement, blah, 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 having a takeover. Like, I get it. It's been a disappointing season, but you can't just look at things in tunnel vision and say, oh, Erik ten Hag lost 14 games. Oh, we finished on -2 goal difference. But what's the reason for that? Oh, it's just Erik ten Hag, is it? You're telling me that another manager's going to come in and this team's going to do better? I don't think so personally, but obviously everyone's entitled to their opinions. I like to have conversation. I like to have debate. Yeah. Fred says, what's your thoughts on this? How about we keep Erik ten Hag for a bit if it means that we can then get a better manager? Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility, isn't it? But who is that better manager going to even be? Like, Nagelsmann, maybe. Is he better? I think he's probably on par with him. Ancelotti, I think he's a better manager. Would he ever come to Man United? Probably not. I think he's going to get the Brazil job, isn't he? I think. Zinedine Zidane, it excites me, but there's also massive question marks. Is Zinedine Zidane still the manager we all think he could be? Yeah, let's see what else people are saying in the chat. Andrew says, I think they'll give him till Christmas. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the best option, really, to give him next season or at least till Christmas. What else have we got in the chat? Jarvis says, Thomas Tuchel, Southgate and Potter are all a downgrade. Ineos will keep Ten Hag. Footballing people understand injuries is the reason for poor results. Yeah, exactly, mate. That's exactly what I just said. And I agree with you 150%. I just don't understand how people can look at things so simple-mindedly. I'm sorry. It really, really confuses me. I think, like, most people who watch football, which is fine, okay? I actually respect this. Most people who watch football watch the game on the Saturday and then don't really care about any of the other stuff around it. They'll watch the game expecting Man United to beat every single team because that's what, you know, we used to do, or that's what happened when they were growing up. We beat everybody. We won every game. And they don't really follow closely what's going on. And they listen to people like Sky Sports who are just continually bashing Erik Ten Hag, saying that, you know, Man United should be winning the league, even though we've got Johnny Evans, Casemiro, and Wan-Bissaka, who's not a left back, as our defence, you know, etc., etc., etc. You could go through the whole squad. You've got Garnacho, 18, as the winger. You've got Mainu, 18, as your main centre midfielder. That should never happen. You've got Rasmus Højlund, who scored 7 goals last season in Serie A as your only striker. You've got Anthony, who obviously was a terrible signing. You've got Marcus Rashford, who goes out getting drunk, you know, doesn't come into training, arguing with the fans, putting up statements on Twitter saying that it's abuse because he's not been playing well. Like, the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. But all you hear from Sky Sports is, this is Erik Ten Hag's fault. He should be sacked. He's not good enough. I mean, we've not been good enough for 10 or more years. Should the question not be, why is it that Manchester United destroys managers' careers? Why is it that every 2 or 3 years, managers come to Manchester United and leave broken, leave as a laughingstock, with their reputation ruined, and the players remain? Why does that happen? Are these not questions that we should be asking ourselves? Maybe not. Maybe people don't really care about that. Like I said, some people just want to go and watch football on a Saturday as an escapism. They don't care about all of the other noise. They don't care about all of the context. They listen to Sky Sports. They hear people like Gabi Agbonlahor, Talk Sport, saying, Erik Ten Hag's rubbish, get him out. I mean, what has Gabi Agbonlahor achieved in his life? I mean, obviously he's a Premier League footballer, but, you know, to just say he's rubbish, and then when people say, oh, he's had injuries, they're like, oh, injuries are not an excuse. It's just embarrassing. And I think that, yeah. Everyone who's just joined the video, by the way, please give the video a like if you haven't already. Let's try and hit 200 likes, and make sure you subscribe as well. We're going to be absolutely smashing out the videos throughout the transfer window. I actually am really excited about this transfer window. I think it's going to be our biggest and best transfer window yet. So make sure you subscribe if you want to, you know, keep up to date with all of the latest Man United news. Yeah, I am expecting this to be our biggest transfer window in the last decade. And if it's not, then, yeah, it's going to be disappointing. Red Devil TV says, Ten Hag is by far the worst Manchester United manager since Sir Alex Ferguson. You know that as well. Do you really think that? So you think Erik Ten Hag is worse than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? You think Erik Ten Hag is worse than Ralf Rangnick? You think Erik Ten Hag is worse than David Moyes? I don't agree with any of that. I think Erik Ten Hag's worse than Mourinho, definitely. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was here for, what, 2 or 3 years, won nothing. Football is based on results. Football is based on trophies. And, yeah, I think it's very harsh to say Erik Ten Hag's the worst manager since Sir Alex Ferguson. But, obviously, that's your opinion. Let's see what else we got quickly before I wrap up the video. I've been quite animated this morning because the season's coming to an end. I'm starting to analyse everything. I'm starting to reflect on the season we've had. And yeah. Chris says, who said that nonsense? I don't know. Somebody further up in the chat seems to think Ten Hag is the worst manager since Sir Alex Ferguson. I honestly think if we beat Man City on Saturday, I would say that Erik Ten Hag's the best manager since Sir Alex Ferguson. He won us our first trophy in 6 years. Does that not say everything for itself? No manager had won a trophy at Man United for 5 or 6 years. Erik Ten Hag comes in after our worst points total in Premier League history, gets us 3rd place and wins us a trophy. Like, how can that make him the worst manager? That doesn't even make any sense. Football's based on winning things, not based on what possession stats you have, what your XG is. Like, I don't care about any of that. You want to see enjoyable football. You want to see your team winning. and you want to see trophies. That's what football fans want, right? I don't know. Let's see what else we got in the comment section quickly. Let's have a look. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Should Erik ten Hag be given a new contract? I'll give you my answer. And it's simple. And I hope everyone can agree with me here. This isn't even my opinion. This is how I see the situation. If Ineos genuinely believe that Erik ten Hag is their man that they want to take forward for the next 5-10 years, give him the new contract. If there's any doubts about that, if they secretly want Gareth Southgate and they think he's going to be the one to bring us success, then you've got to get rid of him. It's not up to me or you. They've got to 100% trust and back him. And if they don't, then sack him. Because at the end of the day, me and you are just football fans. I'm just somebody sat in front of a webcam talking about football. Like, the pressure is on Jim Ratcliffe, Ineos, Jason Wilcox, Dan Ashworth, Omar Barada. They're the ones who need to create this vision for us. They're the ones who need to get us competing with Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, all of those teams, right? It's their job to resculpture this club and bring us back the success that we all saw in the 90s and early 2000s. And if they don't think that Erik ten Hag is that person, then sack him, 100%. You know, it's easy for me or you to say, oh, he's the worst manager. Oh, I like him. Like, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. What matters is what Jason Wilcox, Omar Barada, Dan Ashworth and Ineos think. Because their vision is either going to work or it's going to fail. And if they continue with this project with a manager who they don't 100% trust, who they don't think is part of their project, then you have to get rid of him. Of course you do. But me personally, I mean, I'm sat here, I don't know any of the Man United players. I don't know Sir Jim Ratcliffe. I don't know what any of these people are thinking. Okay? And my opinion, analysing the situation, is that we repeat the same cycle every 2 or 3 years. But in some ways, all of that is irrelevant. Okay? Yes, that's a fact. We sack a manager every 2 or 3 years. But if they're already thinking about sacking him, if they already secretly want Roberto De Zerbi or they want Graham Potter and they're convinced that that's the person who's going to be able to deliver their project, then he has to go. You know, it's as simple as that really for me. And I think that it's so easy for fans to have different opinions. It's so easy for, you know, people to argue and say, look at the stats, look at the goals, and all the rest of it. But the most important thing for me is that Ineos back the manager. And if they don't, I don't want to go into next season with uncertainty. I don't want to be talking about this every other day about, oh, is Erik ten Hag going to be sacked? Like, I don't want to do that. It's boring. It really, really is boring, you know? Like, Liverpool stuck with Jurgen Klopp. Arsenal stuck with Arteta. Either Ineos come out and say, we're 100% sure in Erik ten Hag. We like him as a person. We know he's a good manager and we're going to stick with him. They either do that, which I think a lot of fans would agree with, or they say, unfortunately, this isn't the person who we want to deliver our project, and they get rid of him. And in some ways now, I just want to know. I don't really care anymore, to be honest. Like, we all have opinions. We all, you know, think we know better than each other, but it's completely up to them. Right, let's move on from that. I could literally talk about the manager all day. That's the thing. Let's talk about Mason Greenwood really, really quickly. Another person who divides opinion. Before we do that, smash a like on the video, guys. We are nearly on 200 likes on today's show, which is really, really good. So make sure you smash the like button and subscribe if you are new. Yeah, get involved. I've just dropped a link in the live chat to subscribe if you haven't already. So if this is your first time watching, make sure you subscribe. Really excited for the summer transfer window. Red Devil TV. Let's just read out this one comment quickly before I go on to something else. He says, "You're looking." I assume it's a he. They. You're looking at stats because that's rock solid facts. This manager has spent hundreds of millions and taken us backwards. How can you say he's taken us backwards? The season before he came in, we had 58 points. The season after we came in, we finished third and won our first trophy in 6 years. How is that backwards? It's pretty obvious why this season has been poor. This season we've had... Do we really need to go through it? We've had no Martinez, no Luke Shaw. His £60 million Mason Mount signing's been injured all year. Rasmus Højlund was injured for 2 or 3 months. Casemiro was injured for a lot of the season. Jadon Sancho refused to play and effectively forced a move to Dortmund. Ronaldo left last season. Who else have we got in there? Malasia's disappeared off the face of the earth. Another one of his signings. Eriksen's been injured for most of the season. Who else have we got injured? Rashford's, God knows what's happened with Rashford. Like, the list goes on and on and on and on. So it's night and day to see why this season's been bad and last season was better. The big guy says, I think Erik ten Hag will do amazing at Bayern if we lose him. Mate, I 100% agree with you. Mark my words. Erik ten Hag will go to another club and will be an incredible success. And we'll be sat here, all of the people who are screaming Ten Hag out, we'll be sat here with Graham Potter, we'll be in an equally as bad position, and then we'll be being told, trust the project. It's a 2 or 3 years project, and we'll be sat there in 3 years, and we'll all be saying sack Graham Potter. It would just happen again. Right, let's talk about Mason Greenwood quickly then. So the headline this morning is that apparently Napoli have contacted Manchester United over a deal for Mason Greenwood. So that'll be really interesting to see what happens with that one. Apparently Borussia Dortmund, Juventus and Atletico Madrid are also interested in signing him. But Getafe seem to think that he's going to be allowed to stay on loan with them for one more season. For me personally, we just need to sell Mason Greenwood now. I'm sick of talking about him every single day. 30, 40 million pounds, bring it in, reinvest it somewhere else. Is Mason Greenwood a good footballer? Yes. Has he done well at Getafe? Yes. But is there a world where he can play for Man United again? I don't think so. Whether that's not my opinion, well, it is my opinion, but that's not my personal feelings. That's just based on me living in England, knowing what the media are like, knowing what the press are like, knowing how much disruption it will cause. Obviously, the women's team aren't happy with it, all the rest of it. Whether you're going to be sat at home saying, I don't care about that, that's fine. Obviously, you're entitled to your own personal opinion based on your kind of morals and your beliefs and all the rest of it. But in the situation we're in, I don't see how Mason Greenwood can play for Man United ever again. I just don't. I just don't think it would work. I just think that it would be a bad distraction. But I do agree he's a good player. Like, no doubt about it. But yeah, what you can let me know is, guys, how much do you think Mason Greenwood is worth in the current market? I would say like 30 to 40. Sorry, my throat's going a bit tickly there. I would say like 30, 40 million pounds would probably be reasonable. But yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that one. Let's see what else people are saying in the chat quickly. Sung Lee says, Ten Hag kept Ahmad out since December. Mate, Ahmad Diallo's been injured for most of this season. He got injured in pre-season against Arsenal, I think it was. He was meant to be breaking through into the team this season, and he got injured. The same with Kobe Mainoo. He got injured, didn't he? Right, I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. It's been a really good stream this morning. I've had, I think, about 400 people watching, which is really, really good. I will be back at 6 p.m. today. Please smash a like on the video before you go. Subscribe to the channel as well. This has been Daily Red Devil. Have a lovely day, everybody, and I'll speak to you all at 6